A hot Jupiter is almost never a solitary planet. And yet, for years, the opposite idea seemed unavoidable. A gas giant orbiting its star in just a few days is usually imagined as a gravitational bulldozer. If a planet that massive ends up there, the story goes, it must have arrived through a violent migration. It pushes neighboring worlds away, swallows them, shatters them into unstable resonances. In the end, only the giant remains, scorching and dominant, its orbital path swept clean like a corridor after a landslide. The assumption feels plausible because physics is often merciless. Protoplanetary disks are filled with gas and dust, but also with planetary embryos competing for mass and stability. A large planet migrating inward does not travel quietly. It exchanges angular momentum with the disk, generates density waves, displaces material, and reshapes the dynamics of every nearby body. And when an enormous object moves close to its star, the inner region becomes a minefield. Resonances, secular instabilities, close encounters. The image of the isolated hot giant is born from exactly this scenario. The detail that destabilizes this story is that there exists a system, about 190 light-years away, showing a pair that should not be able to sit together, a hot Jupiter and, even closer to the star, a mini-Neptune. Not a distant planet. Not a peripheral companion. A smaller world racing ahead of the giant on a shorter orbit, as though it somehow found a place in the most dangerous region without being swept away. The contradiction is immediate. If the giant arrived through brute force, how could an inner planet remain there intact, and in such an orderly configuration? This is the fracture that forces the story to change. Because the right question is not, how did it survive by miracle? The right question is, what kind of migration creates a bulldozer that does not destroy, but coordinates? A clue comes from the mathematics of orbits. The two planets have periods that nearly fall into a simple 2-to-1 ratio. The mini-Neptune completes 2 orbits while the giant completes 1. This is not an aesthetic detail. It is a gravitational lock. In a resonance, encounters never happen randomly. They occur in nearly the same geometry every time. Gravity stops being a series of surprises and becomes a repeated choreography. It is the mechanism by which a system can transform chaos into regularity. And here emerges the most unsettling possibility. Perhaps we are not looking at a giant that destroyed everything in its path. Perhaps we are seeing 2 planets that traveled together. And if they traveled together, then the inner region of the system is not a birthplace. It is a destination. That difference changes the meaning of every detail, especially one that usually stays in the background. The frost line, the boundary beyond which water and other volatile molecules can freeze within a protoplanetary disk. Beyond that line, the amount of solid material increases dramatically. Building large cores becomes easier, favoring the birth of icy planets capable of capturing thick gaseous envelopes. Inside the line, where temperatures are too high for ices to survive, forming massive planets becomes harder because there are fewer solid building blocks available. So if a mini-Neptune is now found blisteringly close to its star while still retaining a dense and chemically complex atmosphere, the question changes once again. An inner planet exposed to extreme radiation tends to lose its atmosphere, especially if it is not very massive. And yet some mini-Neptunes appear to endure, as though they were once heavier, or composed of material far richer than we would expect from an object born in a hot, volatile poor region. The atmosphere becomes a memory. A kind of chemical archive that, if read correctly, may reveal a frozen childhood. But reading that archive is difficult, and the difficulty itself is part of the story. In systems like this, planets are not perfect clocks. They disturb one another. Every transit may arrive slightly early or slightly late. If you want to study a planet's atmosphere, You must point a telescope with exquisite precision and know exactly when the transit will occur. When those timings fluctuate, the risk of missing the event increases. It is an observational trap. What is dynamically most interesting is also what is easiest to lose. And that is how a system can appear simple for years, until someone decides to chase the irregularity instead of dismissing it as noise. If we follow the shared migration hypothesis, the pair suddenly becomes coherent. Imagine the outer disk, beyond the frost line, as a region where planetary cores grow rapidly. One becomes massive enough to enter the race for gas and turns into a giant. Another grows a little less, captures an envelope, but never dominates with hydrogen and helium. A mini-Neptune is born. So far, nothing unusual. Then the disk itself intervenes. It is not a passive stage. It is a gravitational fluid. And fluids can drag. Through continuous interactions with the disk, planets can migrate inward, not like bullets, but like objects sliding along a gradient of angular momentum. During that drift, something crucial happens. Their relative distances change. Their orbital periods begin to converge. Eventually, the ratio approaches 2:1. At that moment, gravity starts repeating itself with regularity. If the migration is slow enough, the system can become trapped in resonance. From then on, it is no longer an independent fall. It is a bond. The two planets become gears. Every orbit contains a subtle gravitational negotiation that preserves their spacing, prevents close encounters, and allows the inner planet to remain ahead of the giant without being overwhelmed. This resonance has a double narrative effect. On one hand, it explains survival. On the other, it creates an observable signature, transit timing variations. What looks like noise to a casual observer becomes proof, to a dynamicist, that the pair is exchanging energy. It is like listening to two instruments that are not playing perfectly in time, yet that tiny mismatch is exactly what reveals they are interacting. And at this point an even deeper problem emerges: thermal survival. A mini-Neptune this close to its star is bombarded by ultraviolet radiation and X-rays capable of inflating and eroding its atmosphere. Many planets in this region eventually drop into a different category altogether, stripped down into bare super-Earth cores after losing their gaseous envelopes. If this world still retains a substantial atmosphere, then its history of mass and composition must be unusual. Perhaps it was once much larger and has already lost part of its envelope. Perhaps its atmosphere is heavier and therefore more resistant to evaporation. Perhaps the energy it receives simply is not enough because gravity holds the gas more tightly than expected. Every possibility implies a different past, turning this planetary pair into a natural laboratory for distinguishing among these scenarios. Now, the temptation would be to end the story with a simple moral. Not all hot Jupiters are isolated, but that sentence is too comfortable. The real tension is that this pair hints at a broader revision of how we interpret the loneliness of hot giants. A small planet close to the star can remain invisible for practical reasons: irregular transits, weak signals, unfavorable orbital inclinations, stellar noise. And if our statistics about planetary solitude were built on what is easiest to detect, then the observational sample itself may be distorted. That does not mean every hot Jupiter has inner companions. It means our certainty about their isolation may be far more fragile than we are willing to admit. There is another consequence too, more subtle and more profound, concerning planetary formation itself as a narrative. For years we imagined planetary systems as static constructions. Planets born here, remaining here, with only minor variations. But real systems are often migratory. They are maps of traffic, not maps of residence. If two planets can migrate together and become locked in resonance, then the diversity we observe does not depend only on where planets form. It depends on how they travel, how long the disk survives, when it dissipates, which resonances are crossed, which are captured, and which are broken apart. Two systems may begin in remarkably similar ways and end up radically different simply because one had time to lock itself into resonance while the other did not. And so we return to the pair that should not sit together, because the image of the solitary hot Jupiter is seductive. It is a simple story, almost cinematic. A giant arrives and devastates everything. But the universe rarely pays in simplicity. Sometimes it pays in choreography. Sometimes it pays in slow migrations that create order instead of destruction. In this system, the hot giant is not merely a conqueror. It is a witness. Proof that something enormous passed through that region, yes, but not necessarily to erase. Perhaps to carry something along with it. And if that is true, then the mini-Neptune is not a random survivor. It is a living document. Its atmosphere, its mass, its position ahead of the giant, the near resonance binding the two worlds together. These are all lines in the same story. Two planets born in the cold that now live in fire. The paradox is not that they exist together. The paradox is that, by observing them, we realize migration is not always synonymous with violence. It can also be a gravitational pact. A journey taken in pairs. An improbable coexistence made possible by precise rhythm. And that rhythm repeats every few days. Two orbits against one. A simple signal suggesting a deeply complex memory. If you listen to that rhythm long enough, it forces you to wonder how many other impossible pairs we are overlooking simply because we have become accustomed to telling the story of hot Jupiters as planets that travel alone. If you made it this far, it means you love curiosity as much as we do. If you enjoyed this journey, leave a like, write a comment, and subscribe to the channel. It is the best way to support what we do. Your presence truly makes a difference. Until the next exploration.